Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Fort Collins Fellas. I am Chris Murphy with co-host Patrick Soukup, and today is going to be a great day. We're talking food, the food scene in Fort Collins, and we are so excited to have Kat Reeves. She is one of the co-owners of Bistro Nautile, a fantastic restaurant down in Old Town Fort Collins. And a special guest, Chef Ryan, is with us as well. Ryan, it's great to have you. Thank you guys both for coming on board. And, we were doing a whole thing in June around the food scene and the restaurant scene in Fort Collins. And so this is just going to be fantastic. And, Kat, I'll let you start and Ryan as well, and just kind of give our listeners and viewers a little background of, how Bistro Nautile came about, how you got into the restaurant scene, and we'll just take it from there. So thanks again.
Okay, well, I'll start with some background. In 2001, my ex-husband and I opened, my ex-husband opened fish restaurant in the same location that Bistro Nautile is at 150 West Oak Street. And, at that time, Fort Collins didn't have a seafood restaurant. So he felt like that was fulfilling a niche. And I was one of the original servers. That's how we met. And we got married about 6 years later, and we ran that restaurant for 19 years. And Chef Ryan became our chef in 2016. And Mike stepped away from the restaurant in 2017. And Ryan kind of taught me how to do my job as far as the kitchen went. I was good at front of the house stuff, but I had no idea how to cut fish or really do anything in the kitchen. So Ryan and I became very close through that time. And we always talked about running a restaurant together because we're very similar in a lot of ways in our meticulousness and our passion and the way we like to do things. So in 2016, it became very apparent that fish was no longer going to be viable because the prices of seafood kept raising and raising, and we were rather pigeonholed into seafood only. So in the beginning of 2020, I reached out to Ryan and asked him if he would still be interested in running a restaurant with me. And he said, absolutely. And of course, this was totally separate from the pandemic. So we chose to announce that we were going to rebrand in March of 2020. And a little harsh. 2 days after we announced our rebranding, Jared Polis shut down all the restaurants, and there ended 19 years of fish. So we did a major remodel. Ryan was able to make the kitchen just the way he wanted it, which was a pretty big gift. And we opened as Bistro Nautile on June 15th of 2020. It was a little bit of a bumpy road there for the first couple of years, as the last couple of years have been for all people in the restaurant. But I'm excited to say that I think that we're proving to be viable as we get ready to celebrate our 2-year anniversary on June 15th.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great. I remember when I first went to your restaurant, I was eating out in the patio in the parking lot because of all the COVID restrictions. And it was a great meal in the parking lot.
Now, were you guys able to take advantage of the PPP, seeing as you guys were shut down and then opened up June 15th? And so you didn't have a payroll maybe at that time, which was kind of how PPP was based and really a lifeline for a lot of these restaurants?
We were. So the PPPs did not necessarily rely on having been open through the entire period of the pandemic. What they relied on was how long you had been operating as a business. And because Bistro Nautile was a DBA change rather than a separate entity with a new tax ID number, awesome. We were able to take advantage of all of the government loans that were offered to established restaurants. And that's the only reason we made it through the pandemic. I mean, we worked really hard. Ryan worked especially hard, but it was impossible to be viable for about a year and a half.
Yeah. I think that's the only reason why majority of restaurants made it was PPP, RFA. That was a massive lifeline that I don't think the downtown specifically scene would be nearly as vibrant as it is today without those.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
Chef, what's some of your background?
Uh-oh. Ryan, can you hear us?
It's that downtown right between 10 to 2 p.m. of all the wireless getting all plugged up.
I know. I don't know if you could hear us.
I can hear you now.
Oh, you can hear me. Okay, perfect. Ryan, how about a little background on how you got started? I saw that you got quite a resume, and from culinary school to, I'm going to butcher it. Is it sommelier, like the wine? Is that how you pronounce it? sommelier?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, got our level 1 sommelier through the quartermaster somms in Boulder, and that was a pretty challenging experience because I'm not as into wine as Kat is, but it was definitely needed for tasting menus and for suggested pairings and things like that. It's helped me out along the way, especially at the hotel with private dinners and banquets and things like that. We need to be able to suggest suggested pairings, and you don't have to go as far as sommelier, but it's definitely helped.
Are you still at the Stanley Hotel up in Estes Park?
No.
Okay.
How many
No.
do you know, Ryan? How many sommeliers, if any, are in Fort Collins?
I'm sure there's quite a few. A lot of the level 1 is actually very achievable and very applicable to the people that work in this industry. And I know there's a lot of bartenders that have their Cicerone, which is mainly focused on beer and spirits and things like that. So it definitely gives you a level-headed edge when it comes to management, working with guests, and also just working in any bar around here. And I'd say there's probably quite a few around here.
Gotcha.
That's cool. So Ryan, how did you my wife, obviously she's, a big food blogger and loves cooking and everything like that. I'm in our kitchen right now. I thought the theme of the episode would be around food. So I jumped in here, but tell us a little bit of background. Did you grow up cooking, and, how'd you become a chef in Fort Collins?
My dad is the reason why I became a chef, because he was nagging me not to do that. He said, you want to scrub pots and pans and cook stuff and be in hot kitchens. And this is conversations that we were having from, no kidding, age 7 to 9 when we were fishing. And, he was teaching me how to fillet fish, and we were cooking fish up. And I think that's really what really grabbed me as far as being a chef was rooted. My mom was a pretty good cook too. So
that's cool. That's
great.
And,
from there on out, my first job was a cashier at Panera Bread when I was 15, just turned 15. And then I wanted to see the kitchen. I wanted to see their little baked goods thing. So I got hands-on with that before going to school and after school. And then work just became, really a passion for me when I was at a really young age. I've always been that way. So I realized that you could move forward really quickly within kitchens, and you could learn a lot of different things. And, I just fell in love with it. And then from there on out, I had a second job as a salad expo at a steakhouse. And then I saw real food going out, not just fast, quick service food. And it really caught my eye, their attention to detail, wiping plates, and just seeing how much work goes into just getting food to the table. And then from there, I worked at a place called the Untitled Pub, and that was huge. That was a very big volume place.
Time out. I think you broke up just a touch. Where did you work?
It's called the Onion Pub.
Oh my gosh, I 100%. Did you think the same thing, Chris?
I thought you said the Hunt Club.
That's exactly what I thought you said. I was like, that has got to be some high class buffalo wings.
No, this is all back home in Chicago. It was a big, huge. We had a conveyor belt that pushed out weddings for 600, and they had a private lake in the back. It was really done up nice. It was owned by they were already millionaires, and then they won the lottery there. They won a $365 million lottery, and they gave all the money to their kids. And then their kids wanted to do this big brewery, and it was just flawless from, floor to ceiling. Everything was brand new kitchen. And then, I became a kitchen manager there, and then I got transferred to another family friend. And I have really close ties with a lot of cooks and pastry people, believe it or not, from where I grew up. The old pastry chef of Alinea lived 3 doors down from me. And Alinea is it's Grant Atkins' place down in Chicago. They're #1 restaurant in the world at one point. Just being around that, and I did private dinners with her, and that's what really set the tone. And it just, the cooking scene in general just kept giving and giving, and it provided more and more challenges and hills to climb. And I mean, I think my resume speaks for itself in regards to just going after whatever was in front of me. And, I really wanted to see, after culinary school, the seed to table program. So I wanted to be a farmer. I wanted to see the purveyors. I wanted to see how food was transported. And there's just so many facets and umbrellas in this field that it's just endless. You can do anything and everything.
Ryan, that's awesome, man. I love hearing that story. And it kind of goes into, this is for both you and Kat. One of the questions I want to ask you is, what are your thoughts on the overall Fort Collins? We're about Fort Collins here and everything like that. What is your thoughts on the Fort Collins food scene? And where would you like it to go? Or I'd love to get your take. I mean, I personally think that Bistro Nautile is one of my favorite restaurants in Fort Collins. I tell everybody about it. And there's such an interesting scene in Fort Collins. It's like there's not like that Michelin star, like, oh, you got to go there. But there's just a ton of, like, you can tell. I mean, we got Taste of Fort Collins coming up. There is a big beer and food scene in Fort Collins. And I love, you guys are in the heart of it. You work in it. You're in the kitchen. You own a restaurant. What is your take on the overall Fort Collins scene? And Kat, maybe I'll have you start us out.
Well, I think that there's a lot of restaurants in Fort Collins that do food well, but there's not very many restaurants in Fort Collins that focus on seed to tail, farm to table, local purveyors, and really making seasonal ingredients happen and working as a team with all aspects of food. There's actually an organization, Chef, what's the name of the certification we got from those people? Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah, it's on the door. Exactly. He's looking at the door.
I forget the name of it. Veronica, what's that certification on the door? The Food Shed Project?
Yeah, the Food Shed Project. And so they certify restaurants that work specifically with farm to table, local farmers, and you have to pass a bunch of certifications. And there's only 3 that are on their list as of the last time I checked. And there's Little and Us and
the Regional.
And so I think that that's a really important part of doing food right in Fort Collins. And we're really proud to do that. There's a lot of food, like joking with me the other day, he said, man, it'd be so much easier to be doing pizza and tacos. Like there's a lot of food out there that's easily accessible, especially as we go into a recession and people start to worry about price points. But we try to strive for not necessarily accessible, but amazing, and putting a good value on the price point that we charge people. And, downtown's a really good place to be able to do that because lots of people are drawn to downtown and are drawn to the food scene down here because there's a really great cultural scene as well.
Why is I'm curious on that. Oak Street has been around, and they've had some remodels over the years, and the growth of Fort Collins and Old Town continues to move south and north, but a little bit off the beaten path, but with some phenomenal gems, with Jay's Bistro being there forever, and, the Regional right there, and Everyday Joe's great coffee shop, so there's this sweet lineup of shops. How do you guys like being on Oak Street?
Well, I think Oak Street's been called Restaurant Row for about 30 years. And we opened before Jay's Bistro even actually moved onto Oak Street, when they were in the Great Western Bank building right there on the corner of Oak. And then they moved over to Oak Street shortly after we opened as Fish. And it's really great. We have the coolest neighbors in the world. The guys at Taj Mahal, one year our freezer broke. And this was when we were Fish, and there was thousands and thousands of dollars of product in our freezer. And they made room in their freezer to make sure that we were able to keep our product and not lose those thousands of dollars. The people that own Tasty Harmony, Jill and Sasha right next to us, their youngest and my youngest have gone to school together since kindergarten. And it's really fun to have that connection to them as humans. And then Colin, who owns Jay's Bistro now, is a great friend of Ryan. Ryan and Colin work together, I believe, at Jack's. Is that right, Chef?
Yep.
And so it's really fun. And then Kevin, who owns the Regional, who owned the Regional until recently, was Ryan's chef at Jack's. So to have these really intimate connections, people who are our neighbors and surround us, it makes us way more like a family than a set of restaurants. And it's pretty great.
And it's also this amazing choice, right? You've got Indian food, you've got Italian, you've got, all the different types of choices. Babalu's, that's a Cuban, little restaurant in there.
Awesome.
Yeah, and so it's just it's pretty special for if you're going downtown, a great option for you to just literally go walk and choose.
And I just mentioned Gabe Armstrong at the Crooked Cup. I know you said that, but we carry Gabe's espressos and coffees, and we think he has the best coffee in town.
So Crooked Cup. Yeah.
To try to connect with our humans.
That's interesting. Well, Chef, just to kind of piggyback on that, what are your overall thoughts on the Fort Collins food scene? What's your take?
It's growing. It's getting bigger. The city's need for more of the same thing, I feel like, is getting larger. So we're seeing a lot more, like we were talking about previously, taco shops, pizza places, burger joints. And I think that's kind of the more frustrating aspect of it, is that there's a lot more corporate hands getting in here because they know it's a generally, college driven town, and it's constantly changing every 5 years. So people want their go-tos, so it won't be long before like an In-N-Out's here, I'm guessing, or something along those lines. But there's a handful of places that kind of do what I'd like to see more of, which is more so, utilizing local farms and, just doing their part as a restaurant and not neglecting the fact that somebody makes a living out of being a farmer down the street from us and wants to charge a little bit extra. Like, just buy it and put it on your menu. It tastes so much better. It helps our local agricultural program. And, I tend to just always stick to the supplier on things. And I'd like to see more of that in town personally. There's a handful of people that actually go out of their way to go to the farm to pick up stuff and then bring it back to the restaurant, put it on the menu that night. And I'm proud that we're one of those people, even how busy I am, I still on graduation weekend got in my car with the 25 minutes that I had, drove to the farm, went in the cooler, got chased by one of the farmer guys there because he didn't know who I was. And I was like, I left a check. And, it's good. It's something that I truly believe in and something that we need to start doing more of as a community. And, the farmers market's right next door to us, which is really cool. There's a lot more food trucks around. I think that's great. I think that's giving people that local flair, which is kind of neat. And those food truck rallies are booming. They're always busy. So you see a lot of good food trends going that way. And a lot of people getting out of these high rent cost places that don't own the buildings and just reverting back to a food truck, because it's more manageable and it's cheaper to run.
Yeah. And so Ryan, let's just kind of piggyback on that about the overall, prior to recording, we were talking about owning the building and not owning the building. And Patrick, I mean, you got your family, you got a lot of knowledge on this as well. And Kat, but tell us a little bit about this. Like, if you're going to open a restaurant, I would assume 9 times out of 10, you're going to be leasing. You're not going to actually be owning the building. And you own the building at Bistro Nautile. Can you tell, our listeners a little bit of, what are the challenges of trying to create or start a restaurant in Fort Collins when it comes to kind of, the leasing and owning part of that aspect? Because that's a huge expense, I can imagine.
I look at it as, if you're leasing a place at the amount of rent that's being charged, like, you need high turnover in Old Town in order to do that. And you can't be pricing things on your menu for $12, $15, $16, which is what people really want. But, they can't afford to keep their place open unless they're serving 300 people, for lunch and 200 people for dinner every day, I feel like. And that's my personal opinion on it. And I think it's kind of ridiculous that rent just keeps going up for people that don't own the building. Yeah. And I have no idea how they're going to make it or how other people are going to make it, because, there might be a lot of people vacationing and walking around and being in Old Town, but I personally see a lot of people just eating, you know, or just going out all the time. It's just not consistent enough, especially since the amount of people that have moved to the south side of town, or, you know, Fort Collins, even on the north side, it's branched out pretty far. What's that open market area?
Well, you're going to have Montava going in a couple of years up by Budweiser, and you know it'll be interesting to see what that happens. That has
changed.
Yeah, it's very interesting to watch this place get taller and buildings get taller and the place to grow. And we're just gonna hang on and see what happens. You know, I think we're one of a handful of places that's really trying to do the right thing and really trying to provide what we want to provide. Do they cut out?
No, you're good.
Oh, okay.
How do you feel Fort Collins residents are as far as being receptive to that message and driven to support local, or do you feel it's kind of washed over and yeah, it's great, but I'm going to go next door because it's got my Taco Tuesday $7 deal, or do you feel like Fort Collins is intensive about that?
I've had this talk with Kevin at the regional and even Colin, where, you know, during and after, straight after the pandemic, like we're always going to be busy on the weekends, but, you know, we strive to be consistent Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you know, since we're closed on Mondays. And, you know, different marketing programs, different ways to bring people in, like you can still enjoy your night. And I really think we have our crowd set, but it's grasping the rest of the neighborhood on the everyday situation is the challenge right now.
I'm going to add to that. I think that another thing that's really huge for people in terms of wanting to support local restaurants is knowing that the owners are on site doing things. I know that when I'm there and I see people and I pour them water and I tell them who I am, they get really excited. Ooh, you're the owner. And I personally don't think that's fancy at all, but people get very excited by that personal level of service. And I know that other restaurants where, like Sasha next door, he's in the kitchen. The folks at Little, Brent and Dan, they're both there running the floor all the time. Collins at Jay's all the time. It makes a really big difference because there's somebody that cares no matter what. And that shows in the employees, that shows in the food. You know, when your boss is around, you're going to do your very best job. Really
Kat, I can tell you, I love that. I tell people when we go there, I'm like, yeah, Kat, the owner's right there. Like you come to our table every single time we've been there, and it just said, "Hey, everybody," and they're like, "Who is that?" And like, that's the owner, and that goes. They're like, that goes a long way. Just that extra touch, and I know you don't necessarily think that it's that, you know, maybe that kind of special up there, but it makes a difference, absolutely, and I love hearing that. So going to you, there's Little, Regional, and you guys, Bistro. You know, what can the community, what can Patrick and I, what are you doing? What can we do to get this message out and try to, you know, get more restaurants to become more of that farm to table and supporting the local agriculture and the local farmers?
As you two personally, or just,
or anybody, you know, anybody listening, you know, or out there.
I would say recognizing all the local farms around here and getting to know those are completely different than a lot of other places. So for instance, we use a local baker, Erica Glaze. He just opened up a place in Timnath, and, you know, there's a new owner at Raisin Roots, and that's right down the street from us. And there's a lot of little patchy farms around here that you kind of see off and on at the farmer's market. And those guys just put their blood, sweat, and tears to make Fort Collins what it is, to represent that giant, huge letter A that's, you know, painted onto the side of Fort Collins. And I have so many people ask me all the time, like, what is the meaning of that? You know, it stands for agriculture, the Aggies. And, you know, you just got to keep supporting them and keep going out, keep striving to recognize places that use them, and they do the same for us. So, you know, if somebody was buying, let's say, Jodar Farms eggs, they're like, oh, well, where can I get these eggs in town that's at a breakfast place? And they'll say, oh, these people use our eggs, the regional, Little restaurant, and Jack's Fort Collins of all places, like they still use Jodar eggs, which is awesome. And then we use them. So instilling those practices, getting people to use those eggs and use local product is just going to be the way that we keep them alive. And it's just so much better, like the egg is better, the lettuce is so much better. Everything's better. I mean, Kat picked me some rhubarb from her friend's place. Like, let's use what we have and not try to outsource constantly from California and Mexico and all these other places. And it's just so much better to support local.
And I think that another thing that people can do is to actually ask where things come from to increase their own awareness. It's hard to support if you don't know that products are local and if you don't care. But if you taste something, you're like, man, that's delicious. Say something to your server. Where did you get this? Because like Ryan said, you can really taste the difference between things that are made locally and travel like feet or miles to your restaurant and things that travel hundreds or thousands of miles to your restaurant. I love telling people at lunch that the egg on top of their tartine is from Jodar Farms and that all their microgreens come from Spring Hill Greens. That stuff makes a really big difference. So I would just say, like, as a consumer, educate yourself, go to the farmer's market, interact with those people, find out, where they are in restaurants, and go to your restaurants and interact with your servers. Ask them where their stuff comes from and take note. If they being the restaurant is serving local products, the servers should be knowledgeable about it. And if they're washy and they can't answer your question clearly, well, that's a flag right there that they're not actually supporting local businesses and farms, because if they were, it would be a point of pride. It's definitely a huge point of pride with us. And I know with Little in the region, like, we like to brag about it because it's not cheap. It's not easy to do that, but it's super important.
You guys talked about, your marketing efforts to continue to get your Tuesday, Wednesday crowd going. How are you guys reaching, folks that are new to Fort Collins and growing that Tuesday, Wednesday crowd? And do you foresee Fort Collins ever being a place? Because one of the things that I love about Fort Collins is we can go walk down Restaurant Row on Oak Street, and there's not going to be a wait on a Wednesday evening. But for a time for those restaurants to be able to pay those higher rents and understand cash flow, having those reservations, 6 tables deep on a Tuesday evening really makes it a lot easier being successful. So how are you guys, getting the word out and, for people to come in Fort Collins? Because I will tell you, me and my wife have not been there, but we're excited to try it after this episode.
That's a really good question. I think marketing is something that a lot of restaurants struggle with. And for us, now that we are a fancier brand than we were as Fish Restaurant, it's something I'm the marketing director. So it's something that I struggle with a lot. Chef is super creative, and he comes up with all sorts of funny ideas for things to do on different days. Like, we have an industry discount on Tuesdays, but we're going to start like wine and cheese Tuesdays. It's fun to have a gimmick. We do fancy Wednesdays with like cheap oysters and wine. But your question really relates to, how do you get the people to know those things? So we have a newsletter, and I put out a newsletter every month to month and a half whenever we have something exciting to announce, like a new menu or a special event. And the great thing about having online reservations, we didn't have online reservations as Fish, but with Resi, you can take the email addresses of the people that have made reservations and add those to your newsletter list. And so that really helped us to expand our marketing reach and to get diners that otherwise would not necessarily be repeat customers or would not have an awareness of what other things we're doing. We used to do a lot of coupon books, like Valpak with Fish, but I honestly really worry about cheapening our brand as a fancier restaurant by being in those. So Ryan and I are doing an experiment this year, and we have done a couple ads in Quality Connections, which goes to a really high income bracket, but we're not really doing a lot of advertising, and we're seeing if word of mouth and our reputation can just spread naturally. Like one of our servers who's actually worked with me for 13 and a half years, his tagline at the end of every meal, if they say, oh, it was great, he's like, tell your friends. And that's really what we're trying to do, is to spread by telling our friends. I mean, I believe that the reason that we're on this podcast is because Chelsea and Chris told their friends. They went home, they had a good experience, and they said, this is cool. We want to spread this around in Fort Collins. And
my wife is hard to please on the food front. She loves your food. Sorry, Kat, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Cut me off. I think that that's about what I think. Chef, what do you think?
I was just saying that a lot of it's all social media nowadays. I feel like everybody picks their phone up and Googles something, or is on Instagram and they see a reel or a story, and it's really generating, a lot of younger people, a lot of new people. So
I think one of the things too with Fort Collins is, like it or not, it's a very growing community where there's people from all over the country that are moving here. That's honestly like where a lot of our business with Soukup Real Estate comes from, is out-of-state clients that are bringing a lot of dollars here. And Bistro Nautile being a higher end, one of the things that, there's been restaurants that have come in, high-end restaurants. I mean, like, yeah, Sunny Lubbock's has been a good steakhouse, but, Catacombs, for different reasons, wasn't necessarily successful. But, Fort Collins has never had that Michelin star restaurant or the super, super high end, because we haven't had the population with incomes to allow us to spend that on a consistent basis or enjoy that experience. But I think that's changing a little bit. And to your point, yeah, you don't want to water down a brand that clearly, appeals to people with finer taste and understands the quality and the process that you guys are going through, getting the natural ingredients through farm to table. And, over time, yes, that will grow, but it'll be interesting too, and it'll be fun to, market this podcast, but also talk with people that we have relationships with to go and experience that and experiment Bistro Nautile. So thank you for allowing us to understand a little bit more about your business.
Yeah, Patrick, you nailed it. I was going to say this is almost the same thing. There are people, I talked to California, Boise, Idaho, Indianapolis, all in the last week, and they're all moving to Fort Collins.
All my clients.
And they're all, one question I have, and I think I had not an argument, but a conversation with another restaurant owner in town. And I said, do you think the Fort Collins community will pay X amount of dollars for a high-end steak, or will spend the money, go to a high-end restaurant? And he was like, I don't know. And I go, I think they will. And I think the demographics are changing. And Ryan, you were saying, it's a college community and you're seeing this turnover every 5 years. And that is absolutely true. But I think you're going to start to see people from all around the country and all around the world come here. And I think there is an appetite, no pun intended, for that quality of food, and that in the price point won't matter. They're going to pay for it because they know it's really good.
We sure hope so.
Yeah. Well, hey,
we got to ask him our question, Mr. Murphy.
Yes, and I got I just want to touch on two more things. One is Taste of Fort Collins. Are you guys doing anything for Taste of Fort Collins? No.
No, let me take that one. So Taste of Fort Collins started out as literally a taste of local Fort Collins with like 12 vendors around the Oval. And we were there, restaurant, and it was awesome. And then, it moved downtown. It moved to whatever the name of that park is behind the government offices. Yep. And we were still there, and it was really great. And slowly over the years, Taste of Fort Collins has turned into food trucks, but a lot of corporate food trucks, or like carnival food trucks, very little representation from local businesses, and then the big concerts. So it's
more of like a music scene. Yeah,
it's a really cool like music scene, but it is a massive effort to cater to businesses like that, to events like that. We're not really set up for that, especially with the pop-up tent and all the things. So we like to save our massive effort like that for events that give back to the community, like Wine Fest, which supports Disabled Resource Services, and The Taste, which supports the Larimer County Food Bank. So we're into doing things like that, but we really want it to be events with a cause, not money making, kind of not real representation of local Fort Collins events. I think it's kind of a joke at this point that it's called Taste of Fort Collins, because it's not.
If you go to the website, there's like a picture of a concert festival. It's like you think it's a music scene, but no, I totally respect that, Kat. And like Patrick said, Patrick and I, we end every podcast because Fort Collins, everybody loves the beer scene in Fort Collins and everything like that. But do you guys have a favorite patio or a watering hole that you'd like to visit? Ryan, I'm going to start with you. After getting done, where do you like to go grab a beer, or is that something that you'll do from time to time?
Currently, I don't drink, but back in the day, I used to go to the Crown Pub and go in the basement and just hide out down there. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if I'm grabbing a beer somewhere, I like going, or a cocktail, I like going to outlets downstairs. But yeah, basements, away from the general public. You just see them all the time, so it's just like, I just want to get away.
I like it.
Yeah.
I love Little. I really love the food that we serve and the environment that we create for people, but I can't come eat at my restaurant because when I'm there, I want to jump up and I want to help every table, and 17 people want to come and talk to me. So I can't have an intimate experience at Bistro Nautile, but Little is very similar to us. I know the owners, and they treat me the way I treat other people at my restaurant. So if I'm going to go out and spend money in Fort Collins, it's almost always Little. I also really love Ty at Social. I know Ty owns several restaurants, but Social's super great. The charcuterie boards and the attention to detail that he provides with his drinks list. I really enjoy that. I just like restaurants that try to elevate it a little bit and that show that they care and that, quality ingredients and good cuisine mean something to them.
Yeah. Well, no, that's awesome. I mean, yeah, Ty is a great example of how to run a phenomenal restaurant. I mean, walking back behind into their kitchen and how clean everything is and they do a good job. So yeah, I agree. And I have not been to Little either. So I've got 2 on my list that I just added.
You got to go, Patrick.
Little's good. Little's really good. Yeah.
But Ty's a great example of how to run an empire. I mean, that man started with just one little place and has expanded and expanded and expanded. And it's pretty incredible. Like, if you're going to make money in the restaurant scene, Ty is a really good model.
Agreed. Yeah. Well, thank you guys. Chris, you want to take us out?
Yeah, I was just going to say, man, I have a ton of respect for both of you. We loved you before, but after hearing you talk and Chef, man, hearing you talk about your passion for the farm to table, like, that's what I took from this. And it's regional, it's Little, it's Bistro Nautile, and I'm gonna push those 3 and push the education of asking your server where the ingredients came from. And I think that the trajectory of the food scene in Fort Collins after hearing you talk is going up. And Chef, any final words before we wrap up?
No, I just want to thank you guys very much. This has been a blast. And I like talking about things like that because I think, just things need to be said, things need to be cleared. And I feel like supporting local is definitely the way to go. And all the small business, us included, that's mainly where I shop and hang out.
Awesome.
I like it. Well, thank you guys both. This will be part of the June episode. We can't wait for it. And you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much again.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Patrick. Have an awesome day.
You too, guys. See ya.